Hey, this is Mike Lindsay from Vital MX. We're out here at Fox Raceway today for a day of testing with the 2024 Husqvarna FC 250 Rockstar Edition. Yes, this is going to be a very similar video in terms of what we're talking about in comparison to the 450 we did recently, because it's a lot of the same key changes. And it's something that's been talked about a lot even with the racing side this year because of the topic of what chassis some of the guys are on. Because yes, this is kind of a middle gen refresh for the Husqvarna KTM Austrian kind of trio in general. We had a new bike come out 2 years ago. This one generally looks the same. It's the same basic generation motorcycle, but a lot of the updates been built around the chassis. The outgoing frame had a bit of a controversy around it, or split opinion. It was, for some people better, for some people worse. Me personally, I felt like there was a lack of comfort, touch feel, things of that nature. It just wasn't overall comfortable. The handling characteristic was great at times, but there was just a lack of comfort. So that's really what they've gone to work with on this one. The most obvious standout is the more cutout shock tower, the exposed window in it, but that's also matched up with differences throughout the frame in thicknesses, and also less gusseting at the head stay area where of course your steering stem goes through. At the end of the day, what does that actually mean on the track other than it's more comfortable? The key areas it stands out for me is on corner entry, corner exit, and also slap down, or like your hand touch feel, what you feel coming through the bike. Starting with the acceleration chop, because to me it's the most noticeable character in this bike, is anything really related to square edge feel through the rear end. So if you're clipping bumps coming into a corner, but mostly on acceleration, the old bike, no matter what I did to the shock setting, aftermarket, production, clickers, whatever, there was always this hint of just energy that you could feel up your backside, up the spine, just kind of that the bike never fully felt settled under acceleration. It was always a little bit reactive to the surface. This bike is just a lot more comfortable, straight up. With acceleration chop coming in a corner, coming out, the bike floats through it much easier. Acceleration, you can feel the rear end settle more in between each bump, enough that the bike will basically pack the front end. It'll wheelie a little bit coming out of corners. And a lot of that's there's no real change in power. It's just how well the rear is planting and accelerating through that chop, how settled it is, how compliant it is. It just feels like an all new rear end of the motorcycle. That's also matched again with front character, because again, on corner entry, any sort of chop, the front, it just doesn't feel harsh. It doesn't feel like it's hitting a wall. It doesn't have that harsh kickback in the hands. It feels like the front end's moving just like you would want it to. It's really as simple to explain as that. Some of where else I notice the front end is on corner entry is the front tire feels like it follows the ground a little better. Again, the old harsh character would make it feel like it would skip more, where now there's a little bit of flex. It feels like front to rear. So again, the tire just feels like it rolls over the bump and kind of follows into the corner a little better. So it's just a lot more compliant on corner entry. Of course, overall the chassis is a lot softer torsionally, it feels like. So under really heavy braking, under really heavy loads, it does feel like it wanders a little bit more. But again, for 80–90% of the masses we're talking about they're gonna ride this motorcycle, the overall comfort you're gonna gain is gonna give you more confidence and kind of equal a more predictable feel coming into the corner. You're not gonna second guess if it's gonna wash out or skip or feel harsh. It's gonna follow the ground better. Like I said, in a few places though, especially under lean angle, if I really load the bike hard, you do feel it twist and spring back a little bit. Again, so there is a bit of drawback there, but I'll take all the comfort that comes with it because it makes the bike more predictable. Where it's gonna bind up and twist a little bit, where it's gonna feel more comfortable, I feel like it's the same every lap, which makes it really easy for me to decide what I'm doing with my line selection, how hard I'm gonna push in areas. It just gives me a lot more confidence in the bike. All this, of course, has been mated with new suspension settings that have been built around this chassis. We say this every year, the air fork continues to get better. It's a little bit plusher, it's a little bit easier to change. And a big thing I like this year, again, this is really leaning back to the chassis, I feel like the window of operation in which the bike works is a bit wider. So it's easier for me to make setup changes. I felt like the old chassis was a little more sensitive to bike balance. The new one, I can go less sag, more sag, I can put more weight on the front, take it away without it having as much negative effect. It's easier to go stiffer on the bike because I have more comfort in the chassis. So if I really want to load the bike, I can go stiffer front and rear, I can go softer. I just felt like I had more options, where the old bike I was kind of going one direction to try to find comfort because the chassis wouldn't allow it. Another big change is in the rear end. The linkage, the overall linkage looks a lot thinner because it has smaller through bolts at all the pivot points. So all that's been changed. It's, again, just adding compliancy. The actual ratio of the rock arm and the linkage arm have not changed at all. And again, this is a Rockstar Edition 250 Husky. This has full length suspension. It is not lowered like the standard Huskies are. The standard production model Husqvarna 450, 250, 350, etc. are 10 millimeters lower than the K Timbergas gas. That does not apply to a Rockstar Edition 250 or 450. It's the exact same suspension setting that comes on the KTM. Something else new with this is the connectivity unit. We touched quite a bit on the 450 test about this. It's the module that you see on the front fender. It is something that comes standard on this Rockstar or the factory editions. You can also buy it for $250 to add to any 2023 and newer model Austrian bike. And it basically gives you the ability to log into the bike off their app. You have a lot of adjustments. They're a little more simple than, say, the Yamaha and Cowie adjustments for engine braking, response, things of those natures. You also have the ability to check the hours on the bike, have your service notes, and then for an additional fee, you can have full LITPro GPS data off the bike. One of the simple things I did is, since the Austrian bikes went to this new engine platform 2 years ago, it has great mid-range. It's a bit lethargic off the bottom, 1451 gearing. I would add a tooth or two very easily. I mean, the race team runs 1452 and 1453 with full race engines, but on production, we're on 1451. The gearing is just too spread. It's really fun because you can just ride the bike in second and third everywhere, but it does feel a little bit dead down low. So I opened the app, the standard sliders for your engine response, your engine braking, your quick shifters, everything are set at a 3. You can go to a 2 or a 1 or a 4 or a 5. I took the engine response all the way up to a 5, and I took the engine braking down to a 2. Basically free it up a little bit coming into the corners, and then the engine response does make it snappier. Counterproductive though, it made it right off the crack of the throttle a little bit jerky in the corners, but it did make that RPM pick up a little bit quicker. So again, I could split the difference, but it was nice to be able to log into that app. And it's not as, again, detailed as like the Yamaha or the Cowie one, but it's a lot more simple to understand with the graphs they have and the sliding functions. Overall, we talk about this every year. How much better could these bikes get? Overall, I'm pretty happy with the chassis on this bike. I felt like it was very easy to find a bike balance. My setting changes today were simple. Because the chassis is softer, I went stiffer. I went 3 clicks more on compression on fork. I went a bit stiffer on the high speed on the shock, just to get a little bit more hold up, because the bike overall felt so compliant that it wallowed a little bit in places. But again, their base settings, their components, it's very easy to adjust. The engine package, typical Austrian, loves to scream, has good mid-range. Again, a little bit weak down low. I would change the gearing. I would play with the mapping a little bit more. Those are all very simple updates. The bike comes with good split trip clamps, good brakes, good wheels, a slip-on FMF, just the things we usually see with the Rockstar or a factory edition. So really, at the end of the day, what would I change if I went out and bought one of these bikes? I would still have the suspension set up for me. I'm a little bit over the target weight goal. I feel like I could go stiffer with this new chassis. And I would like to work on, again, that engine pickup or response and even recovery character. Maybe try reflashing a stock ECU, maybe trying an aftermarket ECU, playing with gearing. But overall, out of the box, this bike is, again, fantastic. And the changes they have made would make it better for 80 to 90% of the people riding it. Again, there are some people that might appreciate the outgoing chassis, the stiffness, just because of how responsive and precise it was at times. But the direction they've gone with this bike is gonna make this machine better for the vast majority of people that are gonna go out and spend their hard-earned money on it. If you have any thoughts or comments, anything you're curious about the bike, please throw it in the comments section below. I'll do my best to get to answering it. And as always, thanks for watching.